Hope this message finds everybody doing well. This is the week 4 wrap-up video. I've really enjoyed the Blue Cafe session Wednesday night. I really enjoyed having kind of a free-flowing conversation with many of you and actually getting to see some of your faces and hear some of your voices. I also really enjoyed reading the message board this week, and I just want to touch upon a couple of topics, in particular those that were touched upon in the message board. Jean on the message board gave a really interesting anecdote, and I think unfortunately it summarizes something that's very true within the Catholic Church at the current moment. Jean is from Utah, and in the discussion board post, she talked about what her parents, what her families do on Sundays, and she mentioned that they go skiing on Sundays. And when asked why, many of them will often comment that it's because the ski slopes are more empty on Sundays because the Mormons are in church. And that really struck me because it's true and it's also sad. In many ways, I think that shows sort of the fervor or the importance at which those two groups are currently looking at their own religions. To a group like the Mormons, worship on Sunday is really important, and it's because it's a connection with God and it's a connection with a community. I think in many Catholic circles, Sunday worship, Sunday Mass attendance is not seen as important. And I think it's because it's not necessarily seen as a connection with God or a connection with a community. I think many Catholics, if they go, are going because it's an obligation, or they're going because it's something that they were raised doing, but they don't necessarily see it as a connection to a community. And I think that's problematic. We have to be honest. We have to take a look at Mass attendance statistics, and they're not pretty. Nationwide, according to various research organizations, 24% of Catholics attend Mass weekly. 24%, that's a quarter. Now, when you're talking about families that send their students to Catholic schools, it's most likely higher. It most definitely is higher. We just had freshman registration for our incoming freshman class. And one of the questions on the questionnaire is, how would you describe your Mass attendance? And 52% of our incoming freshman families said that they attend Mass weekly. That's really, really good. Now, it's a self-reporting survey. It's got your name attached, so there's probably some people fudging it a little, but let's just deal with that number. Let's deal with 50%. That sounds really good when it's compared to 24%, but it's still only half of our incoming freshmen go to Mass weekly. So we're still dealing then with 50% of our students who are not regular Mass attendees, our students who don't have the proper faith formation, and that kind of falls into our lap. That kind of falls into the lap of the schools, but that's a good thing. That can be a place where we can start and where we can really tackle some major issues. I think one of the other things that we also have to kind of talk about is you hear about a growth of atheism in today's world, and I think that's a little bit incorrect. There is a growth of atheism, but it's very small numbers. What really is growing is what amounts to a practical atheism. Atheism is a rejection of God. Practical atheism doesn't reject God. It often acknowledges that God exists, or at least probably exists. It's really just a rejection of care. It's not that I don't believe. It's that I just don't have time to believe. It's not that I reject God. I don't have time to be part of another community. I'm part of many communities already. I'm part of a family. I'm part of a work community. I'm part of my neighborhood. I'm part of my son's Little League team. I'm part of my daughter's soccer team. It's not a rejection of God. It's just a not caring. And I think we all know and deal with this. Many of you in the discussion board mentioned that you have family members or siblings or adult children or even close friends who kind of fall into this category where they've just fallen away from the church. And it's not that there's something that has forced them away. It's just that they've slowly slid away. And that's why in the new evangelization reading, I think it's a great analogy that the new evangelization is not a young man trying to woo a woman, trying to catch her eye for the very first time, but rather it's a couple who's been married for a long period of time, and their interests have grown apart, and how do they rekindle that romance that they once had? Um, so that's kind of the spot that we're in right now as schools. A lot of our students aren't going to mass. A lot of their parents probably fall into this category of a practical atheist. But that again gives us a great opportunity. The new evangelization begins in the schools. Um, the school has always been seen as incredibly important in American Catholicism. Going all the way back to the beginning of parishes in the United States, many parishes actually built schools before they built churches. And when you ask bishops and priests why they would do that, they said plainly that the future of the church cannot survive without a school. We can survive a very long time without a church. We can celebrate Mass anywhere. We can celebrate it in people's houses, in people's basements. We can celebrate it in the cafeteria of the school. But if we don't have the school, the future of the church is gone. And I think that's a great opportunity for us in schools. We have a captive audience. We have our students for 7-8 hours a day. We can really, really do great things to promote the new evangelization. We can really be agents of the new evangelization. And that's why this week I think it's very important for us to kind of take a look at how we are developing the faith of our teachers. We all know that the most important part of the school is the teachers. It's not the technology, it's not the textbooks, it's not the curriculum, though all those things are important. The most important part of the school is the people, the teachers. And if we want the new evangelization to be carried out in our school, then we need to make sure that our teachers are themselves evangelized. It's important to cultivate their faith so that they can then build the faith of our students. I always think it's an interesting question to ask teachers. What do they consider to be their faith community? Because many of our teachers are part of a faith community in school, and they're part of a faith community in their parish. Which one, if they have to pick one, is their faith community? And if a teacher says the school, then that says that the school is doing some really, really good things. It may also say something about the parish, but that's not something you and I can worry about. But if a teacher says, oh, my faith community is, St. Ignatius where I work, or my faith community is Holy Cross where I work, then that's saying something about what that school is doing for their teachers, and that has to reflect or has to come out in the way the teachers are dealing with the students. I thank you for your time. I hope you're enjoying the work for week 5. I look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow night at the Blue Cafe session, and I look forward to reading many of your discussion posts later this week. Have a great night. Enjoy.